Space had a sound, not noise, not vibration, a feeling, and right now it felt wrong. Across the silent edge of an unremarkable yellow star system, an imperial sensor officer froze mid-breath. His claws hovered above the console as numbers scrolled faster than physics should allow. "Admiral, you need to see this." The bridge of the Imperial flagship Ascendancy hummed with quiet confidence. This was supposed to be routine, another primitive world, another easy submission. The Galactic Empire had conquered civilizations older than this planet's oceans. Earth wasn't supposed to matter. Admiral Kale didn't even turn at first. He watched the blue sphere growing on the viewport, its clouds soft, harmless. Divided nations, chemical propulsion, radio signals leaking into space like childish whispers. Pre-industrial by imperial standards. "Report," he said calmly. The officer swallowed. "We are detecting a vessel emerging from behind the planet's moon." A few officers chuckled. Primitive ships always tried dramatic entrances. It never helped. "Display it," Kale ordered. The main screen shifted, and the laughter died instantly. The object drifting into view was wrong. Not large, not heavily armed, not even particularly fast, but it bent starlight. Around its hull, space itself rippled faintly, like heat rising from invisible fire. Sensors struggled to lock onto it. Mass readings contradicted visual data. Energy outputs fluctuated between negligible and catastrophic within milliseconds. One moment it appeared smaller than a cruiser. The next, calculations suggested something the size of a continent. "That's impossible," whispered the navigation officer. Kale stepped forward slowly. "Magnify." The image sharpened. The ship's design was crude compared to imperial elegance. Angular plating, exposed structures, asymmetry everywhere. It looked engineered by dozens of competing minds rather than a unified doctrine. Primitive. And yet, every instinct Kale possessed screamed danger. Identify propulsion system. Unknown. Weapons. Unknown. Power source. A long pause. The sensor officer's voice trembled. "It appears to be multiple." Murmurs spread across the bridge. Multiple cores meant instability, inefficiency, madness. No advanced civilization would design such a thing. Unless they're improvising, someone muttered. Kale narrowed his eyes. Improvisation was a survival trait. Dangerous species relied on it when technology lagged behind ambition. A transmission request suddenly flashed across the console. "Incoming signal. Human Defense Command." The bridge grew quiet. "They're contacting us first," asked the communications officer. That alone broke expectation. Most young species panicked, begged, threatened blindly. Kale gestured. "Open channel." Static flickered. Then a human appeared on screen. Older, calm, wearing a simple uniform. No visible fear. No forced bravado. Just focus. "This is Admiral Reyes of the United Earth Fleet," the human said evenly. "You've entered restricted orbital territory." No trembling voice. No hesitation. Kale felt curiosity stir. "I am Admiral Kale of the Galactic Empire," he replied. "Your world has drawn imperial interest. We offer integration and protection." Silence followed. The human studied him not with awe, with evaluation. "And if we decline?" Reyes asked. Several officers smirked. Predictable defiance. Kale answered smoothly. "Then we demonstrate why refusal is unwise." Another pause. The human nodded slowly, almost sympathetically. "That's what we were afraid you'd say." Behind him, alarms suddenly erupted across the Imperial bridge. Sensor spikes, energy surges, gravitational distortions. The strange human vessel moved. Not forward, not backward. Reality folded, and the ship simply appeared closer. Gasps filled the command deck. "That's not propulsion," shouted a scientist. That's spatial manipulation. Impossible. Forbidden. The Empire itself had failed to stabilize such technology for centuries. The human admiral spoke again, voice calm. "You see, Admiral, humanity learned something important while fighting each other for thousands of years. The unknown ship's surface began to glow. Imperial targeting systems shut down one by one. We don't need better technology, Reyes continued softly. We just need technology nobody expects. Kale felt, for the first time in decades, uncertainty. Then the human ship powered something up, and every Imperial screen went black simultaneously. The last thing visible before total system failure was a single line of translated human text. First contact protocol, defensive demonstration. And then, space itself cracked with light. The Empire had faced supernovas. They had survived black hole storms, antimatter rebellions, even wars against machine intelligences older than recorded history. But nothing had ever turned an entire Imperial flagship blind in under 1 second. Darkness swallowed the bridge. Every display, every targeting grid, every navigational star map. Gone. For 3 terrifying heartbeats, the most powerful warship in the sector drifted helplessly above Earth. Then emergency systems flickered online. Red lighting bathed the command deck. Report. Admiral Kale barked. Primary sensors offline. Weapon arrays unresponsive. Navigation desynchronized. We can't calculate position. Panic crept into voices trained never to panic. Outside the viewport, stars appeared distorted, stretched into faint spirals, as if reality itself were being stirred. The human vessel hovered calmly ahead, unmoved, untouched. How? Whispered Commander Vell. They don't possess Imperial-grade computation. Kale didn't answer, because deep down he already suspected the truth. This wasn't superior refinement. This was reckless innovation. And reckless innovation was unpredictable. A junior officer suddenly gasped, "Admiral, internal systems are being accessed." The bridge froze. "That's impossible," Kale said quietly. "Our networks are isolated." "They aren't breaching security," the officer replied, voice shaking. "They're talking to it." Lines of alien code flowed across restored auxiliary screens, messy, inelegant, almost chaotic. Human programming. But it adapted in real time. Imperial firewalls reconfigured themselves voluntarily, like they were being convinced rather than attacked. "What am I looking at?" Kale demanded. The science officer swallowed hard. "Admiral, the human ship isn't hacking us." A pause. "It's teaching our systems how to understand theirs." Silence hit the bridge like impact. Communication through compatibility instead of domination. Primitive logic. Brilliant logic. A new signal appeared automatically, translated instantly without Imperial software. The human admiral returned to the screen. "I apologize for the disruption," Reyes said calmly. "Your systems were incompatible with our safety protocols." "Safety protocols? You disable a fleet for safety?" Kale forced composure. "You have interfered with Imperial military operations. Explain yourself." Reyes leaned slightly closer. "We detected weapon targeting locks forming on our planet." Several officers exchanged uneasy glances. "We assumed hostile intent," the human continued. "So we demonstrated deterrence." Behind him, more human ships emerged from Earth's shadow. Not elegant fleets. A patchwork armada. Different shapes, different sizes. Some clearly older models welded onto newer structures. Civilian vessels modified for combat. Mining ships carrying weapon mounts. Improvised. Ugly. Terrifying. Imperial sensors struggled again. Each vessel emitted a different energy signature, fusion, antimatter, experimental reactors, even something resembling controlled stellar plasma. No unified doctrine. No predictable weakness. "They're insane," muttered Commander Vell. Kale disagreed silently. They were adaptable, and adaptability defeated perfection more often than empires admitted. "Admiral Reyes," Kale said carefully, "your technology violates multiple known laws of physics." The human smiled faintly. "Yeah, we noticed." A few officers stared in disbelief. "You noticed?" Kale repeated. "Turns out," Reyes said, "physics doesn't break. Our understanding does." Another energy surge rippled across space, this time originating from the human flagship. Imperial long-range sensors rebooted just enough to analyze it. Then alarms screamed again. "Admiral," shouted the science officer, "that energy output, it equals a planetary annihilation weapon." Shock spread across the bridge. The human ship couldn't possibly contain that level of power. It was too small, too crude, too human. Reyes' voice softened. "We're not here to fight you." The glow intensified anyway. "But we learned a long time ago," he added, "that peace only works when the other side understands consequences." Kale felt something unfamiliar tighten in his chest. Not fear of destruction, fear of miscalculation. Because for the first time, the Empire might be the less advanced civilization in the room. And then the censor officer whispered words that froze everyone in place. "Admiral, that isn't a weapon charging." A beat of silence. "It's opening something." Space ahead of the human fleet began folding inward, forming a massive, impossible aperture. A gateway, far larger than any imperial jump corridor ever built. And something enormous was starting to come through. The gateway wasn't opening. It was arriving. Space compressed inward like fabric pulled through an invisible needle. Stars bent. Light curved. Even time readings on imperial chronometers began drifting out of sync. On the bridge of the Ascendancy, silence replaced panic. Because every officer understood one thing. If the humans had just opened a wormhole this large inside a combat zone, then everything the Empire believed about technological progression was wrong. "Scale." Admiral Kale asked quietly. The censor officer hesitated, a rare sign of fear in an Imperial veteran. Still calculating, readings exceed measurement limits. A second later, the answer arrived. Estimated aperture diameter, 12,000 kilometers. Gasps erupted. That wasn't a ship-sized gateway. That was planet-sized. No empire in known space possessed stable transit technology, even 1/10 that scale. Jump corridors required massive infrastructure and decades of calibration. Humans had opened one casually during a conversation. Commander Vell's voice cracked. They couldn't sustain it. The energy cost alone. "Admiral," interrupted another officer. "Pale, they already are." Energy readings stabilized. Perfectly. Effortlessly. The glowing edge of the gateway shimmered, and something moved within the light. At first it looked like a shadow. Then structure emerged. Layer upon layer of armor plating. Rotating rings kilometers wide. Engines that glowed not with fire, but with controlled stellar matter contained inside gravitational cages. The thing coming through dwarfed the Imperial flagship, then dwarfed the entire Imperial fleet. Kale stepped closer to the viewport, unable to look away. "What is that?" The translation system activated automatically as a human voice echoed across all channels. "Earth Strategic Vessel Atlas, entering defensive formation." The name meant nothing to Imperial databases, but the scale meant everything. The colossal ship completed its emergence, displacing space itself. Smaller human vessels repositioned around it like escorts around a moving continent. Imperial targeting computers rebooted briefly, just long enough to attempt classification. Result: unknown warship type. Threat assessment algorithms looped endlessly before displaying a message never before seen by Imperial command crews. Insufficient data for survival probability. A cold chill spread through the bridge. Kale had commanded fleets for 80 years. He had witnessed civilizations collapse at the sight of Imperial power. Now, he understood what those species must have felt. The human admiral reappeared on screen. Reyes looked almost apologetic. "We didn't want to escalate," he said, "but your fleet arrived with intimidation formations active." Kale glanced at his tactical officer. The human was correct. Their warships still held planetary assault positions. From a human perspective, the Empire looked like an invasion force. "You claim this is defensive?" Kale asked carefully. Reyes nodded. "Human history taught us something important. The best way to avoid war is to make it very clear how badly it would go. Behind him, the massive Atlas rotated slowly. Sections of its hull opened. Not weapons. Cities. Lights appeared, thousands of them. Habitats. Parks. Rotating environments. Civilian populations living inside a warship. Commander Vell whispered, stunned. They turned a mobile fortress into a civilization. Kale realized the implication instantly. This wasn't just a weapon. It was survival strategy. A species that expected extinction and engineered a way to carry its entire future into battle if necessary. Admiral Reyes continued, "We spent centuries fighting ourselves. Every mistake imaginable. Every war you can think of." His tone hardened slightly. "And we survived anyway." Data packets suddenly streamed into imperial systems, voluntarily shared schematics, physics models, energy theories. Impossible concepts, chaotic solutions, breakthroughs born from desperation rather than perfection. The Empire valued stability. Humans valued results. And results were standing right in front of them. Kale felt realization settle heavily in his mind. This species had advanced differently. Not through unity, through conflict, not through efficiency, through relentless experimentation, which meant one terrifying thing. They didn't follow predictable limits. An alert interrupted his thoughts. "Admiral," shouted sensors. Multiple energy spikes detected from the Atlas. Weapons this time. Gigantic arrays aligning, not targeting Earth, targeting the Imperial fleet. Reyes' voice softened again. "We're still hoping this ends peacefully." A pause. "But our people are watching now." Camera feeds activated automatically across Imperial displays. Billions of human civilians observing the standoff live from their world and from within the giant vessel. An entire species witnessing first contact. No turning back. Kale understood the trap instantly. If the Empire fired now, humanity would unite forever against them. If humanity fired first, the Empire might lose a fleet for the first time in centuries. And then a new signal appeared on the Imperial command console. Origin, Imperial High Throne. Priority, absolute. The Emperor himself was calling. The Emperor never called first. Not during negotiations. Not during battles. Not even during planetary annihilations. If the High Throne opened a direct channel, it meant history was about change. Every officer on the Ascendancy stood instinctively as the Imperial crest burned into existence across the main screen, a blazing symbol formed from 1,000 conquered star systems. Then the image resolved. Emperor Valerius appeared, ancient, still, eyes glowing faintly with augmented intellect accumulated over centuries of rule. Behind him stretched the Hall of Continuity, where every Imperial expansion had been planned. And now, Earth occupied his attention. "Admiral Kale," the Emperor said calmly, though his voice carried enough weight to silence an army. "Report." Kale hesitated only a fraction of a second. "Your Majesty, humanity possesses technology beyond current Imperial projections. We are facing an unknown strategic capability. A dangerous admission, but lying would be worse." The Emperor's gaze shifted toward the human fleet displayed beside Kale's transmission. His expression didn't change, but the Imperial AI registered a spike in analytical processing, the Emperor thinking faster than entire research worlds combined. "I see," Valerius murmured. At that exact moment, Admiral Reyes' image appeared beside Kale's. The human had been added to the same communication channel automatically. Direct dialogue, no intermediaries, no intimidation. Just two civilizations staring at each other across history. Reyes nodded politely. "I assume you're in charge." A few Imperial officers stiffened at the casual tone. No species addressed the Emperor so plainly, but Valerius surprised them. "Yes," he replied simply. "And you are the defender of Earth. Today, yeah." A brief silence followed, not hostile but measuring. Two leaders studying an unknown future. The Emperor spoke first. "Your vessel, the Atlas. It violates several energy conservation principles. Reyes smiled slightly. We stopped assuming the universe cared about our assumptions. Kale noticed something subtle. The Emperor wasn't offended. He was intrigued. Imperial doctrine valued mastery through control. Humanity clearly embraced discovery through risk. Opposite philosophies, both successful. Why reveal such power immediately? Valeries asked. Reyes leaned back in his chair. Because first impressions matter. And because weaker species tend to get conquered. The blunt honesty echoed through the bridge. No threats. No arrogance. Just experience. The Emperor nodded slowly, as though confirming a theory. You expected invasion. We prepared for misunderstanding, Reyes corrected gently. Behind him, footage displayed human history, wars, rebuilding, cooperation after catastrophe, technological leaps born from crisis. Human progress looked chaotic compared to imperial order. But it never stopped. Your species weaponized uncertainty, Valeries observed. Reyes shrugged. We call it curiosity. A faint ripple of amusement passed across imperial officers, quickly replaced by unease when new data appeared. Imperial analysts had finished scanning the atlas. Conclusion: the vessel was not a single warship. It was modular, self-evolving, sections redesigned mid-operation using onboard manufacturing ecosystems. It could change faster than intelligence reports could update. Commander Vell whispered, horrified, "They don't build fleets, they grow them." Kale felt the strategic implications slam into him. An enemy you couldn't predict. An ally you couldn't outpace. The Emperor's voice grew thoughtful. Humanity, you achieved parity without empire. Reyes nodded. We tried empires. Didn't work out great. Unexpected laughter escaped several human officers in the background. The contrast was striking, imperial discipline versus human informality. Yet both stood equally powerful. Suddenly, a new alert flashed across all systems. Unknown signals entering the system. Dozens, then hundreds. Long-range sensors lit up, with incoming vessels approaching faster than light. Imperial officers straightened immediately. Reinforcements? But the signal signatures were unfamiliar, not imperial, not human. Reyes' expression darkened instantly. That's bad timing. Kale turned sharply. Identify them. The answer arrived seconds later. Ancient registry codes. Extinct classification markers. Ships believed lost to history. The Emperor's eyes narrowed for the first time. The Vorlith Collective, he said, quietly. A species erased centuries ago. Or so the Empire believed, and their fleet was heading straight for Earth. Reyes exhaled slowly. Well, he said, glancing toward Kale and the Emperor, looks like first contact just became a team exercise. Outside, the massive Atlas began rotating toward the incoming threat. Imperial warships followed instinctively. For the first time, Empire and humanity faced the same enemy, and the approaching fleet was larger than both combined. The stars began disappearing. One by one, distant lights vanished behind an expanding wall of shadow as the incoming fleet translated into real space. No dramatic flashes. No elegant jump corridors. They simply arrived, like predators stepping out of darkness. Imperial sensors struggled to classify them. Hull, geometry, inconsistent. Energy signatures, unstable. Life signs, uncertain. Range. Admiral Kale demanded. Closing rapidly. 2 minutes to engagement distance. The bridge temperature seemed to drop. Even the massive Atlas looked smaller now compared to the spreading formation ahead. Hundreds of vessels unfolded across space in eerie silence, their surfaces shifting like liquid metal remembering forgotten shapes. Reyes' voice came through again, sharper than before. We thought they were gone. The Vorlith Collective was exterminated, Emperor Valeries stated. Their civilization collapsed during the expansion wars. Reyes shook his head slightly. Yeah, humans learned something about that word, exterminated. Kale understood immediately. Nothing truly disappeared in a hostile universe. Sometimes it just waited. A transmission burst through every channel simultaneously. Not language, not sound, a pressure. Officers clutched their heads as translation systems struggled to convert meaning into words. Finally, a voice emerged, layered, distorted, ancient. Biological civilizations detected. Resource density acceptable. The bridge froze. "They're not negotiating," whispered Commander Vel. Reyes answered grimly. "They never did." Data flooded Imperial displays, human archives shared instantly. Footage of abandoned colonies. Hollowed planets. Stars dimmed by massive extraction structures. The Vorlith didn't conquer. They consumed. Entire biospheres converted into raw energy and computation mass. Kale felt a rare chill. "This system contains 8 billion humans," he said quietly. Reyes nodded. "And trillions of other life forms. To them, that's inventory." The massive alien fleet began rearranging itself. Rings formed, energy gathered between ships, linking them into a single distributed network. Imperial science officers panicked. They're synchronizing power outputs. For what? The answer arrived seconds later. A beam formed, not a weapon aimed at ships, but at the sun itself. Gasps erupted across both fleets. "They're harvesting the star," someone whispered. "If completed, Earth's sun would destabilize within hours. Humanity wouldn't just lose a battle. They would lose their future." The Emperor's voice cut sharply through the chaos. All Imperial vessels, defensive formation Delta, warships repositioned instantly. For the first time in centuries, Imperial cannons powered to maximum without intimidation protocols. This wasn't conquest. This was survival. Reyes issued orders simultaneously. Human ships moved unpredictably. Not rigid formations, but dynamic swarms, constantly adapting positions based on real-time calculations shared across the fleet. Two completely different doctrines. One precise, one chaotic, both aligning toward the same enemy. Kale watched in stunned realization. "Your fleet anticipates outcomes instead of commands," he observed. Reyes nodded. "Every ship votes on the best move. Fast arguments save lives." Imperial officers exchanged shocked looks. Battle decisions made collectively? Unthinkable. Yet terrifyingly efficient. The Vorlith beam intensified, draining stellar plasma into a growing lattice structure. Time was running out. "Fire authorization?" asked Commander Vel. Kale hesitated. Centuries of doctrine clashing with a new reality. Then the Emperor spoke. "Humanity stands with us today. Therefore, they stand within the Empire's protection." A historic declaration. Alliance forged in seconds. Kale raised his hand. "All batteries engage." Imperial weapons fired first. Lances of coherent energy tore across space, striking the Vorlith formation. Moments later, human weapons followed. But instead of beams, space fractured again. Micro wormholes opened directly beside enemy vessels, redirecting captured stellar plasma back into them. The effect was catastrophic. Entire Vorlith ships imploded under their own energy intake. Commander Vel stared, stunned. "They weaponized logistics." Reyes grinned faintly. "We weaponized mistakes." For a brief moment, it worked. Enemy ships shattered. The harvesting beam faltered. Hope flickered. Then every Vorlith vessel changed simultaneously. Their hulls reshaped. Adapting. Learning. Energy resistance climbed exponentially. Imperial weapons lost effectiveness. Human tactics stopped working. The collective had analyzed both civilizations in under 30 seconds. And now it was evolving faster than either could fight. A new signal echoed through space. Threat parameters updated. Eradication prioritized. Every Vorlith ship turned toward Earth. And a weapon larger than the Atlas itself began forming. The weapon didn't charge. It grew. Across the enemy formation, Vorlith vessels fused together like living metal, reshaping into a colossal structure stretching thousands of kilometers wide. Energy streamed between them, forming a lattice brighter than a newborn star. Imperial threat analysis updated instantly. Planetary erasure event, 94% probability. On Earth below, oceans reflected the growing light. Billions watched the sky. Not knowing they had minutes left, Admiral Kale felt the weight of command press harder than ever before. Imperial fleets had destroyed worlds before, calculated decisions made from distant thrones. But watching one about to vanish felt different. Time to firing, he asked. 70 seconds, replied tactical control. Not enough. Even combined imperial and human firepower couldn't break something adapting this quickly. Reyes appeared again on the shared channel, no calm smile now, only urgency. We can't outgun them. The Emperor agreed instantly. Then we must outthink them. Human and imperial strategists began exchanging data at impossible speeds. Two completely different philosophies colliding in real time. Imperial models predicted outcomes through historical patterns. Human systems simulated chaos. Millions of unlikely scenarios explored simultaneously. Kale watched the streams merge. Order meeting improvisation. Perfection meeting experimentation. And suddenly, a human scientist shouted through the channel. They're optimizing against hostility. Silence followed. Reyes' eyes widened. Say that again. The Vorlith adapt by analyzing aggressive intent, the scientist explained rapidly. Every attack teaches them faster. Kale understood the implication immediately. The more they fought, the stronger the enemy became. Commander Vel whispered, stunned. Our strength is accelerating their evolution. The Emperor leaned forward. Then we remove hostility from the equation. Confusion spread across both fleets. Reyes frowned. You're suggesting we stop fighting? Not stop, Valeries corrected calmly. Change the definition of the interaction. Kale felt realization dawning. The Vorlith consumed civilizations because every civilization resisted violently. Their entire evolutionary framework expected conflict. So what happened if conflict disappeared? Reyes' expression slowly shifted from confusion to dangerous curiosity. Oh, he said quietly. That's insane. The Emperor's eyes gleamed faintly. Humanity excels at insanity, does it not? Reyes grinned despite the situation. Historically? Yeah. The plan formed rapidly. Imperial ships powered down primary weapons. Human vessels followed. Across space, targeting locks disengaged. Energy signatures dropped from aggression to neutrality. The Vorlith weapon hesitated. Analysis routines recalculating. Confused. Then, humanity did something no empire had ever attempted during battle. They transmitted. Not threats. Not negotiations. Data. Massive streams of biological information, art, music, history, mathematical paradoxes, emotional recordings, billions of years of cultural complexity broadcast directly into the Vorlith network. Imperial officers stared in disbelief. You're talking to it? Vel asked. Reyes nodded. If it learns from interaction, we give it something new to learn. The Vorlith weapon flickered. Energy flow destabilized. Processing demand skyrocketed as unfamiliar concepts flooded its collective intelligence. Individuality, creativity, contradiction, emotion, variables impossible to optimize purely as resources. The massive structure trembled. For the first time, the collective slowed. Then a new signal emerged, less certain, fragmented, undefined input, purpose unclear. The Emperor spoke softly. They have never encountered a species that refuses to behave predictably. Reyes added, Welcome to humanity. The weapon collapsed inward slightly as internal conflicts spread through the Vorlith network. But suddenly alarms screamed again. They're adapting again, shouted sensors. They're rewriting themselves to process emotional logic. If that completed, they would become unstoppable. Kale realized the horrifying truth. They had seconds to decide whether they were creating peace or accidentally upgrading the most dangerous species in the galaxy. And then the Vorlith transmitted one final question across every mind, every screen, every ship. Define coexistence. The fate of Earth and possibly the galaxy now depended on the answer. Everything became quiet. Not the silence of space, but the silence of decision. Weapons were idle, fleets frozen, Even the burning light of the Vorlith superweapon dimmed, as if the universe itself waited for an answer. Across billions of human screens and thousands of Imperial Command decks, one question echoed: define coexistence. Admiral Kale had commanded invasions, negotiated surrenders, enforced Imperial law across entire sectors. But no doctrine prepared him for this. The Emperor did not answer immediately. Neither did Admiral Reyes. Because this wasn't strategy anymore. It was philosophy. And philosophy could decide survival. Below them, Earth turned slowly, fragile, divided, alive. Cities shimmered across continents. Storms rolled over oceans. A world imperfect, yet enduring. Reyes finally spoke, his voice broadcast across every channel. Coexistence means you don't have to become us. Data flowed with his words. Human history again, but different this time. Cooperation after war. Enemies becoming allies. Former rivals building shared futures. We spent thousands of years trying to make everyone the same, Reyes continued. It nearly destroyed us. Turns out survival works better when differences aren't threats. The Vorlith network pulsed uncertainly. Difference increases instability. The Emperor stepped forward then, voice calm and absolute. Instability, Valeri said, also creates growth. Imperial archives opened, centuries of conquered species now thriving within Imperial borders. Cultures preserved rather than erased. Knowledge expanded through diversity, not uniformity. Even the Empire, built on conquest, had evolved. Kale realized something profound. Both civilizations were revealing their truths, strengths, and mistakes alike. Human chaos, Imperial order, together forming something balanced. Reyes added softly, you see resources, we see stories. Same universe, different lens. A long pause followed. Energy readings fluctuated wildly across the Vorlith structure. Competing calculations rippled through their shared intelligence. For the first time, they were uncertain, and uncertainty meant choice. Finally, a new signal emerged, clearer now. Coexistence requires non-consumption. Yes, Reyes said gently. Alternative energy sources required. The Emperor didn't hesitate. Imperial research archives will be shared. Gasps spread across Imperial ships. Centuries of guarded technology offered freely. Reyes smiled. Humanity will help too. We're really good at inefficient experiments. A faint ripple, almost like curiosity, moved through the Vorlith fleet. The massive weapon dissolved. Ships separated, restructuring into smaller independent forms. Energy drained safely away from the star. Solar stability restored. Earth survived, but something even stranger happened. The Vorlith vessels changed color, dark metallic surfaces shifting into softer luminous patterns no longer configured for harvesting. A final message spread across space. Resource priority updated. Knowledge. Cheers erupted across human channels. Imperial officers stood stunned. A war had ended without victory or defeat. Only transformation. Admiral Kale exhaled slowly, tension leaving him for the first time since arrival. Reyes laughed quietly. You know, this might be the weirdest first contact in history. The Emperor allowed the faintest smile. Perhaps, Valeri said, it is the first correct one. Outside, human ships and Imperial warships drifted side by side, no longer opposing forces. Allies born not from fear, but understanding. Kale looked once more at Earth. A primitive world, they had called it. Yet humanity had achieved something the Empire never had. They turned enemies into partners. And as the fleets prepared to depart together, Imperial databases updated humanity's classification permanently. Species status, unpredictable. Strategic value, incalculable. Threat level, friend. The stars felt different now. Not quieter, hopeful. Because somewhere in the galaxy, 3 civilizations had just proven a terrifying truth. The strongest weapon wasn't power. It was the courage to change the rules.